Thank you all for being here and for letting us know in the comment section where you're tuned in from. My name is Buchi Akpati, serving as NatureServe's Marketing and Communications Associate. And I want to say a thank you to Kathy Gooding, who is the Chief of Staff of our Science Division and Director of our Marine Program, for making all of this possible in the first place. And so this webinar is being led by Nina Hadley. Nina serves as the Project Creation Director of Adventure Scientists. And Nina is passionate about unlocking opportunities for mission-driven people and organizations to collaborate. She worked for almost 15 years at the Nature Conservancy, working in over 15 countries across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, and Central and South America, advancing marine and terrestrial strategies, including co-founding the organization's Conservation Partnership Center. And so with all of this said, I'm now going to pass it over to Nina, who will be taking us on this Adventure Scientist ride.
Great, thank you so much, Buchi, and thank you so much, Nicole, and also my thanks to Kathy Gooden for being part of the chief instigating team along with me as we wanted to reach out today to NatureServe. I'll say a quick hello by video so you guys can see me really quick, and it's always nice to kind of put faces. Hi everybody, this will be who's behind the presentation today. Thank you all for really joining. And again, my appreciation for the invitation to spend a little bit of time with you all today. Awesome. Great. And so really with this invitation, our intention today is to explore possible opportunities to collaborate with NatureServe. I mean, certainly we are aware that NatureServe is a leader in inventorying species as new species are discovered, as well as confirming where species are in the world, the modeling, and in terms of predicting where we may be finding different terrestrial as well as aquatic and marine species, as well as really being a center point and a foundation for ecological data and mapping. Well, here at Adventure Scientists, we are a nonprofit. We equip our partners with research-grade data that is collected from the outdoors that is really crucial to addressing environmental challenges. Yeah, I've been really grateful to be in this position of project creation because myself personally, I'm a marine scientist as well as a conservation professional. In addition to that, I'm also an avid trail runner and a climber. And like I said, we've really got a lot of passion here at Adventure Scientists for getting after a lot of adventure. I think I've got one of the coolest jobs in the world because I get to bring together science and conservation and adventure. So here at Adventure Scientists, we are onto the idea that data collection often requires funding, time, and the skills that are frequently unavailable to people across sectors, not only the nonprofit sector, but also academia, as well as the private sector and those in the public sector in agencies and management. You know, from deforestation to the medical field of antibiotic resistance, many environmental issues that we face could be addressed if data gaps were filled. So as a result, Adventure Scientists has built a global network of volunteers, and as well as that, a platform that's going to allow them to collect data from anywhere, really at any scale. Our vision for the future is that one day data collection will no longer be a limitation to tackling these world's environmental problems. And when we talk about the outdoor community, you may be wondering, why them? Why those folks as people who are ideal for collecting data? Well, first, they pay really close attention to detail. Anybody who's out in the environment is naturally going to be observing it, but they also really enjoy being out there. Second, they're creative problem solvers. From deep in the ocean to the highest of the mountain, we're always faced with challenges from getting to point A to point B, and those in the environmental and outdoor community are really great at solving problems in those kind of environments. And finally, they're able to share their experiences by a rich tradition of storytelling that really is at the heart of the outdoor community. Adventure Scientists have worked around the world, and the dots here on the map represent those hard to reach places in the conservation projects where thousands of highly skilled Adventure Scientist volunteers who, since 2011, have collected research-grade data that is now being used by governments, agencies, NGOs, universities, and businesses to unlock positive change. We've collected over 21,000 samples of plants from above sea level. We've gone over 500 feet below the ocean surface to collect water sample. We visited nearly 3,000 locations alone for our International Microplastics Initiative. And in 2016, our volunteers spent nearly 28,000 days on expeditions across all continents and all the oceans. Here's just a snapshot of a few of our partners. Like I said, we work across sectors from agencies like the U.S. Forest Service and BLM to academics at Stanford University and Harvard Medical School, as well as the nonprofit sector. We really focus our impact in 3 different ways. Really at our bullseye is we're focused on unlocking solutions. And what that means is there would have to be a clear line to a decision being made, a prioritization, a protection, or something that's going to put species protection or other type of management action into play. And unlike traditional citizen science or volunteer-based monitoring programs, we really start our focus right there in that center, unlocking solutions for conservation impact. We've also learned that over the years that by engaging and supporting projects that target change in decision-making and management, that a natural byproduct is that the volunteers who are involved become educated and do change their behavior, especially through that rich tradition of storytelling. We're going to get that broader ripple effect, reaching popular media and issue awareness. For adventure scientists to engage in a project, we vet each of those projects based on 3 key factors. The first one being that there has to be a conservation issue in which the lack of access to data has previously limited the ability to unlock a solution. Second, there must be a tangible change that will be happening as a result of the project's work. And finally, there must be a clear need for the outdoor adventure community and skill set. If data can be collected, say, by a technician or a set of technicians, that's probably not us. We are best suited for environments that might be a little more hard to reach or because of the natural scale of the project. One thing folks quite often ask about is the quality of the data. We definitely prioritize the quality of data, and I'll go into this a little bit later in the presentation. In terms of how we select our partners, how we select the projects, going so far as applying a quality assurance project plan, or QAP, as some agencies call them, in support of best practices in the field research. There's actually 9 elements to our quality assurance and quality control plan, and that involves selecting the right project from the get-go, assigning that quality assurance project plan, and then specifically dealing with the types of volunteers from everywhere, with screening them in terms of how they're selected, to training them, to communicating them, and in fact, even testing them, giving our volunteers a test that they have to pass at 100% before they'll become engaged with a project. Involving the right kind of app or the right kind of protocols, as well as applying GoPro cameras, as you see in the upper left-hand corner here, to make sure that the protocol is really fail-safe, and for us to be able to pick up midway or even at the beginning of the project any opportunities for the protocol to be jeopardized through volunteer error. And then, of course, going through the data as it's being collected and being obtained to make sure that it is consistent and of the highest quality. I'd like to show you guys a video right now that really paints a great picture of the kind of involvement and the kind of support adventure scientists can provide to some scientists. We are aware that when we do use GoToWebinar, there will be a slight delay or a slight disconnect between the audio and the video, so I apologize for that in advance, but the audio and video should be both clear, but they are, again, just there's a little bit of a lag in the delay. So with that, I'll start the video, and after the video, we're going to take a brief pause and see if folks have any questions at this point before I continue on to a deeper dive in illustrating a few of our specific projects.
And any questions you have, you may type it in the chat box so that we may review them.
Great, thank you, Bucci. I'll start the video now.
Pleasure.
Bucci, it looks like I'm having trouble with the media not being attached, so I'm going to toggle over to the web, and hopefully we'll be able to pick it up that way. It looks like it somehow became disconnected from the PowerPoint, so my apologies here. I'm going to go ahead and pause and toggle out, and we'll pick it up off the web.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks. Apologize for that delay. And please let me know if I can make this a little bit larger or deal with the sound a little better. Can we see it at full screen?
Yes. Yes, we can from here.
Thank you.
And then the audio isn't coming through. Perhaps, I don't know if it's muted.
Did you say the audio is not coming through?
Correct, for us. If anyone else can hear the audio, please let us know in the chat box so that we know.
Let's see, let's figure out a way to do this. Again, folks, I apologize. It looks like it just somehow came disconnected from my PowerPoint. What I think I'm going to do, Bucci, actually, is I'll toggle over to a PowerPoint where I do know it's embedded, and then we'll just come right back.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, guys. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Technology. It happens.
That's all right. That's okay. Just spoke with our friends at the National Park Service recently and shared the same video with them. So.
Oh, I see. And
yeah.
The audio, everything was audible?
It was. So let's go ahead and give it a try from this source and see how we go.
All right.
It's like we're having the same problem. It's telling me the media is not found. So I think maybe what we'll do today is we'll go ahead and skip the video. We've tried 2 different things there. So unfortunately, we'll send a link to the video through after the webinar, and people can check it out themselves. It's just a 2-minute feature, and then we'll just toggle on back to today's presentation without a delay. Sorry about that, guys.
It's all right. Yeah, we'll send the webinar link over after we're done, so we'll also include the URL of the video.
Great. Should we go ahead and do that pause and see if folks have any questions before we jump into featuring some of the other projects?
Yeah, sure. If anyone has any questions, commentary, please do feel free to spill it all out in the chat box. We'll give just a few moments in case you're currently typing. Awesome. So we have one question thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can tell us your name and where you're tuned in from.
Sure. Hello, my name is Iveta. I'm the Human Resources Coordinator at NatureServe.
Hi, Iveta. Thanks for your question.
Thanks. I wanted to get a perspective in terms of your opinion of what, because I do see a lot of similarities between what NatureServe does and what you do. What would you say is the biggest differentiator between what the 2 organizations do?
Sure. So we work with partners. We're not an organization we're not an ocean organization or a freshwater or specific organizations that's focused on any one specific challenge, threat, or ecosystem type, if you will. Our strength is that we recruit, train, and manage the right kind of volunteers to collect data and to monitor those ecosystems. So really, you might imagine a coupling of our on-the-ground, boots on the ground, or fins in the water capacity with organizations' need to collect data and monitor specific conditions where either sample collection or different technology might be in play. So I really see us as the boots on the ground, particularly in hard to reach areas or in project situations where the scale, be it nationwide or global, is really so large. We do have this global network of volunteers that can be deployed in partnership to collect data for specific projects.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great question.
Great. If there are no other questions, we'll give it a few more moments. If there are no other questions, then we will continue with the presentation. We'll give you about 12 seconds, just in case you're still typing.
Did you check both the comments and the chat? I mean, the questions and the chat?
Yeah. the questions for any questions. Oh, Cher asks a question. Cher is our project manager, program manager. Forgive me. Sorry, guys, it's Tuesday. Cher asks, who or how is your data collection priority set?
Great question. Thanks for that, Cher. Our data collection priorities are set strictly by our partners. So again, we're not coming out with any specific agendas as a nonprofit. We are really, like I said, the capacity, the boots on the ground, fins in the water capacity, or paddles in the water even. And so really the data that needs to be collected is dictated by our partners. Where we're going to bring a strength is bringing that capacity to collect that data or to do the monitoring and help co-design any kind of protocol so that they are appropriate and going to provide the highest quality data possible at the scale of the project.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Sure, and as I go into these next examples and as I'm moving forward here, you'll get, I think, maybe a little better look at what that data looks like or what that monitoring looks like and how that is dictated really by our partners. So I'll go ahead and jump in. I'm going to give you a couple examples here of projects we've done in the past and 2 projects that are currently in place. So the first one is our antibiotic resistance through scat. Our partner was with Harvard Medical School. And this is back in 2016. We deployed adventurers to collect scat from everywhere from Alaska to Afghanistan in partnership with a researcher who was looking to determine and really isolate the genes responsible for antibiotic resistance in the hopes that one day being able to turn those genes off in a clinical setting. We had volunteers trained in the sanitary as well as safe collection of research grade scat samples from around the world. So in that case, we were looking to get the broadest geographic diversity and the broadest representation of the bacterium that is found in scat for our researcher to determine that diversity and find those genes. In the second case, this is currently an active project that just launched with World Resources Institute. If you visit our website, you'll see we're currently recruiting for volunteers. By creating a genetic library of commercially viable tree species, we're going to help lay the groundwork for applications such as on-the-spot identification of wood by a handheld device, including species as well as the origin of the species to determine if it was legally or illegally harvested. So we're starting this year with big leaf maple across the West Coast from California to Alaska, which is the range of the big leaf maple. We'll have over 150 volunteers out. There'll be trail runners, backpackers, and very likely mountain bikers and kayakers since the species is found along the Pacific coast, collecting leaves, doing coring, and collecting other types of wood samples that will be then used and processed for biogenomics, and then that information being used to fuel a genetic database. And then finally, our partner at the U.S. Forest Service will be looking at, excuse me, I'll go back there, looking at prioritizing remediation sites for the U.S. Forest Service in terms of oil and gas. So volunteers will be out mapping and characterizing what those sites look like through a very strict protocol with the U.S. Forest Service that's focused quite a bit on safety. So like I said, so they can go ahead and prioritize remediation as well as restoration. Then I'll just go into a little bit more about a project we worked on up until the beginning of last year. It is the Landmark Project, and it was a representative project of America's grasslands. And really what we know is only 4 places on Earth still contain these vast unplowed native grasslands. So in addition to here in the American West, Siberia, Mongolia, and Patagonia are the other 3. And together with our partner at American Prairie Reserve, we called this project Landmark. It started in 2014 and ran through early 2017. Adventure scientists and American Prairie Reserve partnered on this project. The reserve connects land, which includes over 350,000 acres, which stitches together both private and leased lands in the continental U.S. It spans across northeastern Montana and creates one of the largest protected wildlife areas in the U.S. We had crews living on the reserve year-round in this case. They recorded wildlife sightings along the designated transects Folks were often hiking between 10 to 15 miles a day. Quite often in the winter, this was sub-zero temperatures. In January, they slogged through epic boot-sucking gumbo mud in the early spring, and they were also out in 100-degree-plus conditions throughout July and August. They helped collect really crucial wildlife information across several large transects, including a 30,000-acre parcel of the reserve. They included the movements of the wildlife, the health, using camera traps recordings along fenced interaction areas. They also conducted wildlife population counts. They recorded the human experience as well, living on the prairie. And importantly, they helped build a global constituency for this special ecosystem. The crews also monitored wildlife population on neighboring ranches through the reserve's wildlife-friendly ranching program. This effort helped to reduce conflict and create soft boundaries between the reserve and surrounding agricultural lands. So together with our partner at American Prairie Reserve, we helped demonstrate the power of citizen science to enhance the collective understanding and inform effective management on a very globally significant grassland. And today, what the project and the partnership set out to do is complete. Like I said, this project did wrap up in 2017. And really, how often do you hear that? We completed what we set out to do. The American Prairie Reserve uses this data now to manage and protect the wild landscape and advance their global agenda in terms of creating the largest protected wildlife area in the United States. The project also created a very engaged global coalition of advocates that have gone on to continue to communicate very effectively about this project. You can see here on the infographic the kind of surveys that were done, the kind of mileage that the volunteers were able to cover in terms of almost 1,300 camera stations, nearly 20,000 different wildlife observations, and covering over 5,000 miles of survey in those 3 years they were working on the landscape. Now I'll talk just quickly about a project that launched this year and will be expanding over the next 2 to 3 years. It is our Pollinator project in conserving biodiversity. It is known that the vast majority of wild pollinator data is collected in very close proximity to urban areas. And Adventure Scientists is working to establish with our partner at the University of Arizona the first large-scale backcountry data set that identifies butterfly abundance, diversity, as well as the distribution, as well as those host plant phases across remote portions of their range. Public land managers, like our partners at the U.S. Forest Service, will use this data to inform their actions such as prescribed burning, protection of threatened species, as well as forest planning. Backpackers, trail runners, mountain bikers have surveyed and pre-selected backcountry sites for the butterflies as well as the wildflowers. And these are some of the results from our first field season. We got over 500 different species, or excuse me, 500 individual butterfly sightings as identified by 50 different species, as well as over 600 wildflower viewings representing over 100 species. This project spans across 5 states, and we can kind of take a look here at the breakdown of those numbers by state as you take a look. So much of the work we do, whether it's collecting a sample or deploying technology to monitor the environment, really allows our scientists and our partners to measure, take the pulse, or check the vital signs of species, habitats, as well as the ecological processes that really matter. Things like water quality, species distributions and behaviors, even forest canopy height are just a few of the aspects that volunteers have collected data on. You know, in terms of the butterfly project that I just featured, certainly the butterfly diversity and abundance, the wildflower diversity and abundance, as well as the wildflower phenology in terms of its leaf, fruit, or flower seed, are types of things that is really well suited for our volunteers. So really, when you break it down, projects that involve the collection of either a sample like scat or water, or deployment of a sensor like a camera trap or a temperature logger really are the best fits for our model. So with that, I will really wrap up the presentation and hope that we can dive into some questions about what a good fit or the ways that we can use that boots on the ground and fins in the water capacity to support NatureServe's mission and objectives. So thank you, Bucci.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nina. We have 2 questions from Cher Howie, who states that we can unmute her so she can ask those 2 questions. So Cher, I'm going to do that in the next 3, 2, 1, and there we go. Cher, you are unmuted.
Thanks, Bucci. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and I'm hopeful others can as well.
Yeah, we can hear you great, Chair. Thank you.
Hi, Nina. Thanks
Hi.
for your presentation. I really think that this idea is a great one. We always need to garner the capacity out there that of people that are already in the outdoors. So I love the concept or the business model. So I think so where NatureServe excels is, we've been doing data collection, but we've also been doing data management, and we particularly pay attention to how to standardize data so that it is actually analyzable and comparable across jurisdictional lines, which is one of the big sort of challenges around data management. So I was just curious, I guess there's two parts to my question. One is, I'm assuming that when you develop a new project with a partner, the partner kind of comes to the table with funds, and then you guys decide on, how the methods and then how you're going to implement it together. So I guess the first question is, do your partners generally come to the table with funds for you guys to do your part of the project, or do you guys sometimes help with fundraising?
Great question. The answer is all of the above. There's certainly cases, particularly with our agency partners, where it's very much a contractual relationship where they are coming with funds with a very specific and discrete start and end to a project. However, a lot of our other partners, particularly in academia or even in nonprofit, may not have the full funding. In those cases, we do have capacity on our staff to do joint fundraising. And so what that looks like is we can help look for grants, we can help write grants, and in cases where, especially if it's a multi-partner type of project where we might be the nonprofit, we might have an academic partner, or it might be us as the nonprofit and an agency partner. If we can leverage the fact that we are an NGO by accessing additional types of funding, we're happy to take the lead. We're also happy to support our partners as they apply for grants and do our part in terms of going with and talking to the program officer. So kind of anything in between. We imagine a full spectrum, and we've employed that full spectrum of fundraising and joint fundraising so that it's truly a partnership project, as much on the other end of that spectrum where it's very much a contractual relationship. Great question.
Great, that's helpful to know, because that could be useful, because I think we've definitely had trouble raising funds for data collection in general. Mm-hmm. I think most of it comes locally through the states, that our network programs that we work with. But so the other part then is sort of like in terms of data management, so our network programs, NatureServes network programs, they act as biodiversity data clearinghouses, and we focus on species and ecological system data. So I could see a partnership potential with you guys in terms of if there's a partner, because we work with a lot of the same partners you guys are working with, like Park Service and others. If there's a potential to have a data flow model so that as data is collected, it gets funneled into our network program, state offices, so that, and in the U.S. and Canada, provincial offices, so that that data takes advantage of the data management systems and the standard data we have in place already, and so that data gets built over time, because that's again another one of our strengths, is that before the NatureServe network, a lot of data that was collected would just kind of be scattered around, and so it wasn't very accessible to the conservation community as a whole. So I think if there was a way we could sort of work together on that piece, it would be super powerful for filling data gaps and things like that.
I would love to have that follow-on conversation with you. So right before I came in to give the webinar, I had a chat with our project manager who worked on the pollinator and the butterfly project. And she said to me, and we've just completed this first pilot year with our partners at University of Arizona, as well as with the Forest Service. And what the Forest Service has told us very explicitly, they said, listen, we actually get our data from NatureServe. And if you could plug in, you being as a venture scientist, with NatureServe and finding out how we can best deliver our data to you at NatureServe so that the Forest Service, can use it effectively, that would be great. And so I think we actually even have an example, and now that we have the data, let's go ahead and practice that. And so I'd love to have a follow-up offline conversation with you to figure out how do we do that? Because we now have data that a partner, a conservation partner in the agency world wants and needs, and has identified you, NatureServe, as that source. So let's go ahead and practice and see what it can feel like and look like, and go at it from there. I think that's a great example, and I was glad she grabbed me right before I came in here to do this. So so let's give it a try, and let's you and I have a conversation. Great, thanks.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sarah, do you happen to have any other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. And we now have an additional question from Bruce Young, who is our Director of Species Science. And Bruce asks, for the butterfly project and other projects involving observations, did volunteers enter their data into standard citizen science platforms, such as iNaturalist, so that the rest of the world can benefit from those observations?
The answer to the question specific to butterflies is yes, we did use iNaturalist, and that was after looking at a bunch of different types of apps. We are set up to build our own apps when apps that are out in the world don't fully fulfill or aren't adequate for the kind of data collection that needs to be done. So we also work with several developers to develop an app if an existing one doesn't work. So again, kind of being really nimble, and that's one of the powers of our organization is we're all not only nimble in the way we do fundraising, we're nimble in the way we can employ different types of technology. So we're certainly not going to reinvent the wheel. We are going to look at the most effective way to gather that data, make it available most broadly, as well as make it most useful to the partner who's engaged us. Thank you, Bruce. That's a great question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's see if there are any other questions. Scroll through. Shares has been answered. Oh, great. We have another question.
Okay. I wanted to just see, Nina, if you can elaborate a little bit more on the way you advocate through media and social awareness, and give us like a few examples that you do that.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
That again.
It's a great question. So her question is, how does adventure scientists, I think you're probably referring to kind of that third ripple, that outward communication that naturally happens as a result of having a very engaged community of folks from the outdoor adventure community and engaged. Certainly we use all different types of social media, and that starts even with our promoting the project and starting to recruit specific types of volunteers. One of the ways we recruit volunteers is through social media. Another way is through partnering with an individual that's highly recognized in the field in terms of skills. So like an ambassador that is somebody who has their own broad social media. We'll engage that person and through their social media channels be able to reach a really diverse group of individuals who will have that skill set. Now, as the project starts and ramps up, we do have someone we call a volunteer communicator here on staff. That person maintains and keeps the door open for communications, not only with training, but also with messaging about how the data that they are collecting is being used, as well as providing those volunteers with other opportunities to become involved, not only talk to each other, but talk to others as well through their social media, Facebook, Instagram, and others, about the important places where they're visiting and the important work that is going on by those partners. Now, as we set up any project, we do have a quote-unquote communications agreement as a part of our broader partner agreement that sets out any specific logistics with regard to messaging and how information is communicated. We've got specific projects that do involve species that are either endangered or at risk of poaching. So especially you could envision in those cases where the location of projects or the location of certain species may actually increase the risk to the species. So we're really careful certainly about the kind of data that volunteers might have access to or are allowed to share, if you will. But broadly, what we're trying to do is certainly create an engaged network of individuals, but by being involved in projects that are truly lined up to have a conservation impact, we find that flows quite naturally. Does that answer your question? That was a great one.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Great. If anyone has any more questions, you're welcome to do so at this time. Ten more seconds.
If not, I have a question for those who have joined. You can
Yes.
turn the table a little bit.
Turn the tables, yes, absolutely.
You know, certainly with our invitation in our previous communications and conversations with NatureServe staff, as well as some of the dialogue we've had with Kathy Gooden, you know, as we think about inventories, as we think about the modeling that NatureServe does and the collection of the ecological data, you know, I would really like to hear more from NatureServe staff and their perspectives is, you know, where are some of your most pressing issues where having either a lot of individuals or individuals that can go to these hard to reach places, you know, where are some of the priorities for NatureServe in terms of where this could plug in the best?
Mm.
And I think Sarah, in asking her question, I heard a little bit, but maybe Sarah can weigh back in on that.
Shara, can we unmute you again?
Brian.
Let's see. Correct. We have a question right up there. Let me see if we can, let me see, Shara. Okay, great. Shara, we're going to unmute you in the next 3, 2, 1, and let's see. Oops, I just did something wrong. Unmute. Okay, so Shara, we just sent you an unmute request, and there you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, you might also want to unmute Bruce Young since he probably has a better overall sense of data gaps, but I do know in terms of our centralized data for the US and Canada, the 2 areas that come up a lot have to do with bees and bats, because we know there's declines happening with those 2 groups, and that we've only recently sort of begun doing data collection, and I know especially for some states they're really behind on that. And one of the needs we have in terms of data collection is to feed into our species distribution modeling efforts, which is something we've been trying to get funding from several federal agencies on. So that I could easily see some sort of partnership there, some sort of proposal to multiple agencies around targeting specific groups. And like I said, Bruce would want to identify some additional groups along those lines. So, and obviously plants too.
So, I'm not sure if Bruce is still with us, but we can most definitely refer the question to him and then get his answer and then transmit it over to Nina. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Yep.
So is it Sarah or Cher? I'm sorry.
Shara. It's Shara, S-H-A-R-A. It's a little different. Yeah.
So just a little bit in response to your thoughts there. So we've, in fact, in our conversation as we're looking at expanding the pollinator study in this next year, the Forest Service has shared their interest in wanting to know about more about bumblebees. So that certainly has entered the conversation as a priority for them. So that's certainly a piece to go forward with. In terms of bats, we recently plugged in with the North America Bat Monitoring Program. We met recently with Bat Conservation International, which I know is one of the key partners there, but that also folks actually here right in Bozeman, Montana, where our headquarters are, one of the women who manages a bit of that data, Kathy, and her last name is not coming to my mind at this point, is actually based here, and we'll be meeting the week after next to discuss opportunities for us to support some of those surveys as well. And again, thinking broadly North America, at least even domestically, certainly that's an area where we have that nationwide network. So certainly hope we can support some of that work as well. So I think that affirms and confirms some of the thinking we've had as well.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Shara. Do you happen to have any other questions, Shara?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
No problem. And we have another question. We have a question from Brian. Brian asks, how do you recruit volunteers?
Definitely. So one of the things that we do is we use our social media channels, things like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as on our webpage. If our landing page, as you come to it, says, hey, if you're interested in volunteering, click here, or if you need data, the other option is to click on the other button. But we recruit, but folks actually have to apply. Just because you click on that button or you respond to a call for a volunteer doesn't mean you're automatically on a project. We go through a very strict application process in which folks are screened. And as part of that screening process, we're looking for a couple different things in terms of folks' level of engagement and where their real drive for becoming involved from a project is coming from. We look at things like how communicative are they in being responsive to our emails to them. Are there spelling errors? We look at things where they're going to indicate to us their level of commitment, their level of quote unquote professionalism, because we know we need to rely on them to not only show up but to be collecting data at the highest quality. So there's a lot of early indicators that we have been able to identify that allows us to go through that screening process. The other way we attract volunteers, as I mentioned, is through using an ambassador. We've had folks like famous high alpine skiers and climbers put messages out through their social media, driving that to our website and then driving the folks through that application process. So using just a full gamut, we just did a recruiting event in California at an outdoor recreation kind of expo, where those kind of folks that are going to have those skill sets, that are going to be interested and be really keen on getting engaged in something like this might be. So we're also meeting them where they are. Great question.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would definitely invite you to pop on over to our website and click on the button where it says volunteer here, and you can see the kind of experience that someone visiting us might have as they enter on our project. We are currently accepting volunteers for 3 different projects right now, so if you're super curious about that or want to volunteer with us, certainly head on over there. We've got a wildlife connectivity project, that pollinator project I mentioned, as well as that timber legality project that's launching with WRI that's available. Mm-hmm.
And for all of you, we just shared the URL to Adventure Scientist's website in the chat box. So don't leave the webinar yet, but just for your reference, you have the URL right there for easy access.
And I'll mention, Bucci, thank you for sharing that URL. If you scroll down below the initial screenshot that you see, that video that I was going to show today is right there at the bottom.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
Wonderful. And Brian has a follow-up question, and he asks, do the volunteers volunteer for specific projects?
Volunteers do volunteer for specific projects. However, we have had volunteers volunteer for multiple projects. We've seen folks that worked on our global microplastic study come to us and work on the pollinator study. It kind of just depends on where they are based. The Global Microplastics Project was a global project where people were really anywhere they could at large and opportunistically take a water sample. Whereas in something like the Pollinator Project, we are going to specific locations. And in fact, folks are actually asked to adopt a site. In the case of the Pollinator Project, they were asked to go out to a site 3 times over the course of the field season. So really we were looking for a commitment, not just one time, or if they happen to be passing through. They had specific coordinates that they were being deployed to, that they were using GPS to find and then go out to. And they were asked to be able to commit to going there 3 times and doing that data collection and that sampling and that survey. So not only will we get people that do multiple projects, we'll get people that sign up and visit, commit to making a site, visiting a site 3 times. We have people that have volunteered over the course of years. In fact, the Microplastics Project ran 3 years. We had same people collecting in many cases over the course of those 3 years and continuing to send in samples. So again, it comes kind of with the protocol design in terms of the kind of folks we're going to reach out to and what kind of data do we really need? Do we need it every month over the course of a year? Do we just need it once a year over 3 years? We're going to be really clear in terms of when the training, but all the way back to when we're actually making that call for volunteers. So again, that's the thing you can check out when you head over to our website. You can kind of see how we're describing the project to those folks in terms of what kind of commitment will be necessary as they join us.
Fantastic.
Great question. Yeah, it was good.
Thank you.
One of the things folks often ask is, how old are your volunteers, or where are they from? We've had volunteers as young, as kids coming along with their parents, to folks, well into their senior years. What we're focusing on is an individual, A, that's going to be committed, B, that can navigate to a site safely, effectively, and efficiently, and 3, that's going to be able to follow the protocol to the highest extent to gather that high quality data. We're not targeting any specific groups. We're going to find the best qualified volunteer for the project.
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a question. So Bucci has a question. And so for the volunteers, is there a minimum age?
There's not. We are going to look at certain safety and different elements, if there's a specific environment that's going to pose some safety. Adventure Scientist does take on liability. We cover all the liability for volunteers in every project. That's something our partners don't have to worry about. That's something that falls within our purview as a part of our service and support of a project. So, depending on a project and a certain limitation, our insurer may say, in this case, it's an 18 and older. Some may be more appropriate for individuals if they're not of 18 years of age to come as younger, but with an adult or with a supervising adult.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but again, we're not targeting a specific group. What we do find with some of our agency partners who do have it's helpful for them to involve certain types of individuals from different communities. We make sure, nothing that Adventure Scientist does is behind the curtain. So everything from that recruitment and that training to actually managing the volunteers that we do is something that is also going to be naturally transferred by working in partnership. So we hope that our partners can be using the different tools and approaches that we use to make sure, especially in other projects that they're deploying on, if they do need to reach specific types of people from different communities, that they can use tools and experiences that they learn in working with us. So, kind of getting, again, that ripple effect.
Fantastic. Fantastic. If anyone has any more questions at all, please feel free to share it in the chat box at this time. We're going through to make sure we didn't miss anyone. All right. Oh, yeah. So let's see here. Something is blinking. Let's see. You want to check it? It says something is blinking. I don't know what that means. So what is that referring to? Not sure. Because I believe we've answered all questions. Actually, Shelly has a question.
Okay.
Shelly Cook. Shelly asks, have you ever not been able to find volunteers for a project?
No, we've never not been able. In fact, we've never fully tapped out our volunteer network. Typically, we have more than we actually need. You find that the outdoor community is a very highly engaged group. These are places people love and enjoy getting out to. People that work and are playing in the more the high extreme sports, river rafting or climbing. Typically, people really care about those places and care about the things that they're observing anyway while they're out there undertaking these adventures. So again, we're seeing more hands raised and more folks coming to us than we've ever been able to fully tap out. So never been an issue.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Great. So if there are no other questions, let's see here. Nina, do you have any questions for us?
What is my question to you guys is what's the best way to stay engaged and to keep our finger on the pulse of the needs? Certainly I'd love to continue a conversation with Bruce and Shara, as well as any others at NatureServe who really feel this might be an opportunity. What I do here at Adventure Scientists is help kick the tires and make sure we're the best suited partner for the job. And if we're not, we try to make suggestions for others who might be. But really, the power here is this global network of individuals and our ability to recruit them, train them, and manage them in support of high impact projects.
Wonderful.
Helpful. Nina, I wanted to see if we can keep in touch regarding volunteer efforts to see if there is something there that can be done. I'll talk with our Director of Human Resources, Connie. Maybe there's a way we can partner. Maybe there's a way, you know, we can continue the level of engagement to see if you can point us in a direction, or we can collaborate with volunteers.
That sounds great, and feel free to copy me on that email, and happy to have a follow-up conversation with them if that's helpful at all.
Thank you, Yvetta. And we also have a question from Courtney. Courtney asks, what is your actual staff size?
We have just grown to the big number of 12.
Awesome.
Yeah. We have a communications director here on staff. We have several project managers. Each time a project comes onto the horizon, we have a project manager that is solely dedicated to that recruitment, that training, and that management of those volunteers and that data as it's gathered. So right now we have several active project managers on staff, one in microplastics, one's in the pollinators, and one in the timber. We're going to be having several others join as the projects from the Forest Service come on point for the oil and gas that I mentioned. Looks like we've got a few other fun ones in the pipeline involving beavers and ecosystem services and climate, as well as some high mountain lakes in the US West. But we work not only domestically as well as internationally. So our project managers sometimes might be based at multiple locations. If projects are particularly large, we might have multiple project managers. But right now we're sitting at 12, and it's pretty awesome. We're all based here in Bozeman, Montana.
Fantastic. Wonderful. And let's see here if we have any other questions. We'll do about 2 more minutes of questions and then we'll round out because it's 2:25 p.m. Eastern.
Great, thanks.
And while we're waiting for those questions, if anyone has questions, you can type it in the chat box. I just thought to share just the reach and the number of us who are from different places. So of course, we're here at our Arlington headquarters in Virginia State. And Nina, you're in Montana, correct?
Yes.
We're in Montana, and we have other attendees from Nevada, from Indiana, Alabama, Georgia, Delaware, Michigan, Washington State, Costa Rica, Minnesota, West Virginia, New York, Colorado, and North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's just, you know, the summarized notes that I took as we were progressing. So it's just really beautiful to see how much event
delegated or relegated by political boundaries. You know, we're looking at certain things across state lines or across, you know, even country lines. You know, that's one of the great things about our partnerships, is it's allowed us to really leverage that global network of individuals across regions or even across any kind of political boundaries. So certainly really exciting to see NatureServes span and impact. You know, with my several years at the Conservancy, it was always nice to have NatureServe partners at the table with us so often, as not only with the natural heritage programs, but with some of the broader challenge as well as threat-based opportunities that our agency partners were looking to address.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have a
Great.
question.
We have another question. This is beautiful. Greta has a question.
How do you find ambassadors? Do you use,
Great question.
you know, cold emails, calls, or is it a strategic route that you take of some sort that you can?
Yeah, so Adventure Scientist was launched officially in 2011, but that came after our executive director being a National Geographic Explorer of the Year. Through our National Geographic relationships, which we continue to keep very strong to this day, as well as individuals who are representatives of certain brands or certain different areas in the outdoor recreation industry coming to us. I mean, obviously, doing good and doing right for the environment is something that's on a lot of companies' mind, as well as a lot of outdoor enthusiasts' minds. So providing a platform or a portal to become involved has something Adventure Scientists has been able to really leverage and become that for those ambassadors. So if you go over to our website, you will see a couple videos by some of our ambassadors that they've done, not only talking about the importance of the places where they are getting after it, but also the projects that they've been able to work on. We had a high mountain snow and ice project that Jeremy Jones, who's a very famous high alpine skier, has been our ambassador. So through our relationships, I mean, the short answer is through our relationships with National Geographic, as well as expanding relationships with different brands who we've been able to partner with as supporters of a lot of the projects that we've done. A lot of those individuals have come forward and wanted to lend their voice to the importance of collecting data and science in today's communities.
Awesome, thank you. Great, so if there are no other questions, we would like to round up here, and thank you, Nina, so much for leading this webinar on outdoor community engagement. I really hope that everyone that attended gained something and can take something home or take something back to the office to implement. And Nina, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I would just, again, like to extend my gratitude to you, Bucci, and Nicole, as well as Kathy Gooden, for helping us get this set up. I know a lot of conversations came into play as we found out that this might be a great way to start the dialogue. We do travel to Washington, D.C. I myself come to Washington, D.C. pretty frequently. And so certainly as opportunities arise, let's think about having a face-to-face workshop of some of these ideas. Otherwise, I'm always happy to jump on the phone, kick the tires on ideas, as small or big as they might be, to start to figure out ways we can further collaborate. I mean, now more than ever is a time for us to be thinking about how can we best leverage the capacity in this global network in support of some of the best science that's happening. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Always happy to have that conversation. And again, my gratitude to NatureServe for the opportunity today.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to you all. And just in case if you all are wondering what's next from here, we will be emailing you and everyone who we reached out to originally the link to this webinar. And if you would like to know more events and ways that you can be engaged with NatureServe, we are actually going to be sending a reminder for our core methodology training. So look forward to that. It's pretty much our annual training. So that's happening April 24th to the 26th in Colorado. So that's like the next, action that you can get involved in. And once again, thank you, Nina, for leading this. And I look forward to us participating in something fantastic again in the future.
Great. Thank you, Bucci. Have a great day, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. You too.
Do they stop it?